My shop is very unique. We do things differently here. For us, it's all about making them as stylish and beautiful as they can be.
What really happened to Danny Koker? His journey is far sadder than the world realizes, and we are going to uncover it all. Cold open Las Vegas is a city of bright lights and louder engines. And for years, one of the loudest belonged to a man in a black bandana with a grin that said he had already seen the story you were about to tell. Danny the Count. Koker built a life out of two sounds he loved since he was a kid: a V8 rumble and a guitar riff.
Actually, my father was gospel, and I grew up in black gospel, and Southern gospel was what I grew up with.
Wow.
And now, you know, I've taken what I've learned and I've parlayed it into a 70s hard rock band.
He turned that love into a shop, a show, a band, and a brand that drew gearheads from all over the world to a corner of the desert where classic steel gets a second life. But behind the cameras, behind the paint and the polish, there is a quieter story. It is grief, trust broken, and a relentless grind to keep creating when the world thinks it already knows you. Roots. To understand why any of this hurts, you have to go back before the TV lights. Danny grew up in a home where music was not just entertainment. It was a way of life. His father, Danny Koker Sr., was a working musician and singer with the kind of voice that could fill a room, and a presence that filled a family with melody. The house was a crossroads of songbooks and toolboxes. On one side, there were harmonies and rehearsals. On the other side, there were chrome parts on the kitchen table and a V8 manual next to the sheet music. Cars got into Danny's head early. So did work. He learned to turn a wrench because he could not rest until he knew how a thing worked. He learned to perform because the stage was a second home in a family that understood audiences and craft. That combination shaped everything that came later. A craftsman who could tell a story, a showman who could build the thing he was talking about. That is rare in any era, and it was exactly what the next chapter needed. Vegas and the persona Vegas gave Danny a canvas. He did not start as a national name. He started as a local presence with a taste for hot rods, choppers, and late-night TV. He hosted horror and B-movie marathons as a caped character, a vampire-flavored showman who brought a wink to the old-school format. The nickname The Count stuck, and it fit. He had the flair. He had humor. He had the sense of theater that would later make car reveals feel like live performances. Count's Customs began as a private garage, a hangout where friends turned ideas into metal. People started asking for work, then more people, and soon it was not just a hangout. It was a shop with a point of view and a leader who could spot a bodyline from across a lot. The early days were the purest form of the dream. Find something with a story. Save it. Build it right. Send it back into the world with more soul than it had before. The TV break. If you watched Pawn Stars, you saw him before you really knew him. He would drop by the pawn shop to appraise a classic or sell something wild, and the chemistry was immediate. He did not speak like a salesman. He spoke like a guy who loved the thing in front of him and could explain why it mattered. That charisma and expertise turned into a spin-off. Counting Cars premiered and took viewers inside Count's Customs day by day. It showed the hunt, the negotiation, the teardown, the paint, the drama, and the reveal. The cast felt like a real shop because it was one. Kevin Mack handled money talk and tried to keep Danny from buying every survivor in sight. Shannon Akow could fabricate a solution where none seemed to exist. Ryan Evans turned ideas into paint that looked like it was poured on. Horny Mike dreamed in 3 dimensions and brought a wild streak to custom work. Rolly Sabo cleaned and detailed until a car looked like it had never left the showroom. It looked like a family because it was one. Jokes flew. Tempers flared. Pride showed up every time a build rolled out on its own power. Loss before the spotlight. The part that television cannot really hold is the quiet that follows loss. In 2008, before Counting Cars ever aired, Danny lost his father. The obituary held the facts, but not the sound of the man. A son lost his hero. A musician lost his first bandmate. A builder lost the voice that taught him to do the job right and to finish what he started. It is hard to explain how that changes a person. You carry it into every room and every decision, and it colors the moments that should be simple joy. When later episodes showed Danny restoring one of his dad's cherished cars, you could hear it in his voice. This was not a flip. This was a promise, a way to sit where his father once sat and say, "We are still here." The metal is the metal, but it was also a song. It was a son arranging a tribute with paint and chrome. That is the kind of scene that stays with people because it is honest. Grief sits in the driver's seat for a long time, and the only way to move it is to keep moving. The pressure behind success is beautiful, and it is heavy. When your name becomes a brand, you stop being a private builder, and you start being a payroll, a schedule, a set of expectations, and a magnet for attention. Episodes need stakes. Builds need margin. Employees and their families depend on the next project closing, and the one after that. That pressure can sharpen you. It can also drain you. The only way to survive it is trust. You trust people with your finances. You trust people with customers. You trust people with your name. Most of the time that trust is honored. Sometimes it is not. When it is not, it does not just cost money. It steals hours. It steals sleep. It steals something that is hard to get back, the sense that your circle is secure. That is a quiet kind of heartbreak most owners do not talk about because there is work to do and a crew to lead. The betrayal that cut deep years into the show's run, Counts Customs ended up in a legal fight with a former employee. The shop alleged that company funds were misused for personal expenses. There were claims about a luxury car down payment and travel costs, and there were consequences that rippled into tax trouble the business had to address. Whatever side of the paperwork you read, the bottom line for a small business was simple. Money that should have gone into builds and payroll was gone. Time that should have gone into customers went into courtrooms and conference calls. For viewers, it was a headline that came and went. For the owner of the name on the door, it was a gut punch. You have to fix the hole and keep the lights on. You have to reassure your team and your clients while you carry the frustration of being burned by someone you trusted. It is not just the balance sheet. It is the feeling that your family got hurt in your own house. That is a kind of sadness you do not see on television because the audience is waiting for the next reveal. Back at the shop, the cost is real. The rumor mill fame is a strange amplifier. It sells your show, and it sells lies about you. False stories pop up overnight. Death hoaxes. Fake product endorsements with your face pasted onto a scam ad. Random blogs that toss your name next to a sensational headline that has nothing to do with you. It is not just annoying, it is exhausting. You watch people you will never meet believe something that is not true because it is presented with confidence and a stolen photo. Danny has had to swat those down more times than fans realize. He has had to say publicly that he is not selling miracle products. He has had to reassure people that he is alive and working when a fake story spreads. It is not the kind of drama you can turn into an episode because it is not entertaining. It is just noise that eats at your focus while you are trying to get a build to the finish line. Multiply that by years, and you start to see why success can be incredibly sad at times. You get famous for the right reasons and then spend your off hours fighting lies. The man under the persona strips away the sunglasses and the cameras, and you find a guy who never really left the garage. He loves the hunt. He will talk about a door gap for 10 minutes and mean it. He still gets impulsive when he sees a survivor sitting half-forgotten by the curb. He still knocks on doors and says, "I have cash in my pocket and a vision in my head." That is not a character. That is the core of who he is. It is also why he needs a team with a different kind of strength. Someone said we can do the dream, but we have to do it inside the budget. Someone to remind him of the deadline when the perfect idea arrives a week too late. The best shops are built on push and pull, and Counts Customs has always shown that. Inspiration is the spark. Discipline is the engine. You need both, or the thing stalls. Music and the stage. If the shop is one half of Danny's heart, the stage is the other. He kept playing and singing while the business grew. The band Counts 77 became a real act with real songs and real fans. The rock bar he and his wife Corey built gave them a stage to host touring legends and local heroes on the same nights that car fans grabbed a burger and talked shop. In one room, you measure a build in thousandths of an inch. In another, you measure a set of cheers. Both rooms are about connection. Both rooms are about bringing something to life in front of people and watching it land. That dual life kept him grounded. Cars in the day, music at night. It is not a side hustle. It is the original language of his family. And it is a way to talk to his father without words. You can feel that when the band hits a groove, or when a freshly built engine settles into a steady idle. Both sounds carry memory. Both sounds say, "Keep going." The shape of the sadness. So what is the tragedy of Danny Koker? It is not the tabloid version with a shocking twist ending. It is quieter and closer to where a lot of people live. A son loses his father and keeps hearing his voice in the quiet. A business leader trusts the wrong person and has to swallow the cost while the world thinks everything is perfect, because the new season looks great. A recognizable name gets used as a prop in other people's lies that travel faster than the truth. None of those things make for a flashy headline. Together, they make a weight that never really leaves. That weight shows up in moments that should be simple. The first start of a fresh motor should be pure joy. Instead, you feel a tug in your chest because you want to call the man who taught you to care about that sound. The reveal should be a victory lap. Instead, your mind flickers to the invoices you had to pay twice and the hours you lost to paperwork you did not deserve. You smile anyway because people are watching and because the craft still matters. But the sadness is there, coiled under the surface, the builds that carry memory. There are cars that matter because they are famous, and cars that matter because they are family. When the shop restored one of his dad's cars, it was not just hardware. It was a rolling memorial. The decisions felt like lyrics. Keep it true to what it was. Make it better where you can. Do not overdo it. Respect the lines and the era. Let the car say, "I remember." Let it say, "I heard you." Let it say, "I am still listening." You can see that same care in the way the team approaches customer builds that have a story attached. An old pickup that hauled a family across a state. A bike that belonged to a father who never finished it. The shop treats those details like they matter, because they do. Anyone can bolt on parts. Not everyone can build the memory into the metal. That is part of why the show connected. Viewers did not just see projects. They saw people and the history they wanted to carry forward. The reality of reality TV. Anytime a reality show runs for years, speculation grows. Is it scripted? Are the prices real? Are the arguments real? The truth lives in the middle. Real shops do not run on scripts. Real deadlines and parts costs do not care about an episode outline. Television does have its own needs. You shape a story. You sharpen the stakes. You hold a reveal. What matters is whether the heart is true, and with Counts Customs, it always felt that way. The grind was familiar to anyone who has sweated a seized bolt at midnight. The little victories felt earned. The panic when something sounded wrong was not an act. You could also feel the pride when the fix worked and the car rolled out under its own power. You felt the bond between people who had been through it together and still wanted to do it again the next morning. Resilience. So what do you do after grief knocks on the front door and betrayal slips in the back? You go to work. You call the accountant. You talk to your team. You reassure your customers. You keep the doors open and the lights on. You keep telling the story you believe in until the other noise fades. That is the only real answer, and it is the one Danny has chosen over and over. The fact that he is still building and still performing says plenty. He did not let lies or a lawsuit define him. He let the next car and the next song do that. He did not let the sadness of losing his father hollow him out. He let it shape him. The most honest tribute you can give to the people who raised you is to keep using the gifts they gave you. That is what he has done. One build and one show at a time. Picking up the pieces. The hardest part of any hit is the next morning. The phones still ring. The doors still open. The logo on the wall still belongs to you. After the financial mess with the former employee, the shop had to run on 2 tracks at once. One track was legal and slow, full of forms and meetings that do not make for good television, but decide whether a small business breathes easy. The other track was loud and fast, the one viewers know, engines, deadlines, and customers waiting for the reveal. That is the balance only a few people ever see, the quiet grind that props up the bright moments. Trust and control. When trust breaks, you do not fix it with a speech. You fix it with systems. Purchases get documented. One card becomes 2 cards with limits. Parts orders run through an extra set of eyes. The person who says yes to a big spend is not the same person who signs the check. None of that feels romantic. All of it keeps the lights on. For a creative crew, it is an adjustment. You want to say yes to the cool idea. Now you learn to say yes the right way, with a paper trail that proves the cool idea will not sink the ship. The shop grew up in that way, and growth always costs something. The calendar never stops. Las Vegas does not wait for your feelings. Cars need to be picked up. A body has to come off a frame. A paint booth slot opens on Tuesday and closes again on Wednesday. While lawyers traded letters, the count of hours and dollars did not slow down. Customers do not buy excuses. They buy outcomes. So the crew kept building. They kept showing up before dawn to strip, to weld, to block, to mask, and to spray. The discipline of craft became a kind of therapy. When your hands are busy, your head gets quiet. When the engine fires and settles into a smooth idle, you feel a kind of relief you cannot get from any other sound. The pause and the return. Every long-running show hits a pause. Sometimes the cameras go quiet for a season. Sometimes a network shuffles a schedule. Fans fill the gaps with guesses. Is it canceled? Is it coming back? Did something happen that we do not know about? The shop had to live through those cycles without losing its identity. The truth is simple. TV is a bonus. The work is the work. When episodes air, the lobby fills with visitors, and the shop feels like a museum and a studio at the same time. When episodes do not air, cars still move forward, metal still gets shaped, and customers still get calls with updates. The rhythm changes, but the purpose does not. More than a set. If you have never visited a working custom shop, it helps to picture the flow. A car arrives and sits for a minute, still dusty with years of storage. Someone photographs the details, the dents, the rust, the trim that is going to be hard to find. The teardown starts slow, then accelerates. Bags and labels go on every fastener. A frame rolls free. The body goes to a stand. Sheet metal gets probed and tapped and marked for cut lines. Somewhere down the hall, a painter builds test panels to see how a color behaves in this light on this metal with this clear. It is not glamorous until it all comes together. Then it is magic. Count's Customs lived in that space, the long, untelevised hours that make the 10-minute reveal possible. SEMA pressure. In Las Vegas, SEMA Week is a finish line and a starting gun. You promise a debut. The calendar is carved in stone. Parts you need suddenly go on back order. A small mistake in bodywork becomes a mountain under showlights. The crew pushes, sleeps less, and eats in shifts. Danny makes calls, shakes hands, and keeps the faith that the last detail will land. Then the car rolls onto the floor, and the world sees it at once. Cameras flash, fans lean in, people ask questions that did not exist until that moment. The crew watches from the edge, exhausted and proud. Those weeks show the best and the worst of the dream. Pure adrenaline and pure risk, wrapped together. Fans and the rumor machine. With more eyes come more stories, and not all of them are true. Death hoaxes hit like a sucker punch. You wake up, and friends are texting to make sure you are alive. Scam ads steal your face and paste you next to products you have never touched. Blogs invent drama because drama clicks. The only counter is presence. Keep showing up. Keep speaking directly to the people who care. Use your own channels to say what is real. Corey's steady hand mattered here. She helped turn chaos into communication, making sure fans heard from the source. That is the quiet labor behind any public life, the work of correcting the record without losing your own voice. Mentorship and the next set of hands. A shop like this has a heartbeat that outlasts any one season. The way to keep it strong is to teach. You pull a younger tech over to a fender that looks straight and show them how light reveals a ripple. You hand someone a shrinking disc and explain what too much heat will do. You explain why a seam should sit this way and not that way because the eye always finds it in motion. Mentorship is not a lecture. It is 1,000 small corrections, a steady rhythm of doing it again, and now look at the difference. The Count is still a showman, but he is also a teacher. He knows the craft survives if people with less gray in their beards fall in love with the work the same way he did. The ritual of memory grief turns into ritual over time. You catch yourself turning a radio to a station your father loved. You touch a steering wheel the way he did before a long drive. You choose a song for the band's set because it puts him in the room. In a shop, those rituals are everywhere. A black and white photo on a shelf. A set of wrenches that never leave a certain drawer. A car that gets started once a week. Not because it needs it, but because the sound is a kind of prayer. Danny carried his father into the room in those ways. The tragedy remains, but it softens at the edges when you let it become part of your day instead of fighting it. The balance of brand and person. Becoming a brand is flattering and dangerous. The brand wants you to be loud every day. The person wants some quiet. The brand wants more shows, more appearances, more deals. The person knows that too much more will hollow out the thing that made any of this mean something. That is where boundaries become survival. Say no to the wrong project. Say yes to the build that lights you up even if it will not go viral. Keep the bar open because it is a place where people come for community, not just content. Keep the band playing because a room full of music does something a million views cannot do. That balance is work, but it is the only way to keep the Count in Count's Customs human. The city as a character, Las Vegas deserves a credit line in this story. The heat that makes paint cure differently. The wind that throws dust at a fresh panel if you open the wrong door at the wrong time. The skyline that appears in the reflection of a perfect, clear coat. The late-night test drives on roads that glow at 2 a.m. because the desert cannot sleep. The tourists who wander wide-eyed and turn a quick stop into a memory they will talk about for years. The locals who bring a car that sat in a garage for decades because they finally trust someone to wake it up. The city pressed itself into the work, and the work pushed back, stubborn and proud. The price of the dream people love to reveal, and so do builders, but there is a tab. Long days turn into longer weeks. Bodies pay, backs get tight, hands ache in a way that only goes away for a few hours. There are family birthdays you miss, and dinners you promise to make up. You pay the price because the result feeds a part of you nothing else does. That is not unique to Danny. It is the reality for anyone who makes a living with a craft. The tragedy shows up sometimes in the mirror, in the fatigue lines you did not have 10 years ago. The answer is to choose the work again, on purpose, and to make the next day just a little smarter than the last. Close calls and near misses. Every shop has a story about a build that almost broke them. The panel that kept oil canning no matter how many times it got coaxed. The paint that reacted because a supplier changed a formula without telling anyone. The engine that sounded right on the stand and wrong in the car, sending the crew back into the valley of diagnosis with a clock ticking. Those are the nights you learn what your team is made of. You see who stays late without being asked. You see who brings a solution no one else saw. The Count's crew earned trust in those crucibles. The viewer gets 10 minutes. The shop lives the entire night. Owning mistakes. Reputation travels faster than any ad. When something is not right, the only real move is to make it right. That costs money. It costs pride. It buys something more valuable. The knowledge that your name stands for the fix as well as the finish. Danny understood that, and the shop earned business from people who had heard the stories. We had a problem. They stood up and owned it. That is a currency more stable than any rating. It is also a philosophy that keeps a team honest. Do it right or do it again. Those are the rules even when a camera is not pointed at you. Friendship at work. Reality TV turned a group of coworkers into familiar faces, but real friendship is tested when the microphones are gone. People change. People grow. People move to new opportunities. Some faces drift off the show and into their own lanes, detailing, painting, building under their own names. Others double down and become fixtures. The sadness and the joy sit side by side. You want people to thrive, even if that means the daily jokes belong to a new crew. You also preserve the bond, the late-night texts about a survivor spotted behind a fence, the old stories that only the people who were there understand. That is what work families look like when you strip the lights away. Home base. Home for Danny is not a secret. It is built on the same two pillars his father gave him: music and work. Corey is part of that home, a partner who turns ideas into systems and rooms into places people want to be. The Rock Bar became a clubhouse for fans and musicians, a place where the dream stayed accessible. You did not need a TV subscription to feel it. You could order a burger, hear a band, and then drive past the shop where the next build sat under a cover. The world loves a star. The Count loves a room where people feel welcome. That is a different kind of success, and it lasts longer. Charity and community. When you live in the public eye, people ask for help. The shop and the bar became gears in local causes: charity cruises, toy drives, benefit shows for families that needed a hand. No one does that to build a brand. You do it because you live in a city where your neighbors are often far from home, and a little help goes a long way. That is part of the story you do not see on TV. The crew that builds cars also helps build small bridges in a town that can be hard on people. It does not fix the sadness in Danny's story, but it redeems some of the weight. What tragedy teaches grief taught Danny to honor what matters. Betrayal taught him to guard the doors and count the bolts. Rumors taught him to speak in his own voice and keep showing up. Those lessons add up to a life that looks simple on a t-shirt and complicated in real time. The tragedy of Danny Koker is that the very things that made him, family, and trust were the places life hurt him the most. The triumph is that he did not let those moments define the rest of the story. He put his hands on the work again and again until the noise faded and the engine spoke louder than anything else. Legacy in motion. Legacy is not a plaque on a wall. Legacy is a car that fires on the third crank because someone chose the right jetting. Legacy is a young tech who learned to check a panel with their palm instead of their fingertips, because the old man showed them once and said, "Remember this." Legacy is a song that feels different when the band hits the bridge because the person at the mic is not faking it. Danny's legacy is moving, in metal and in music. It circles the block and comes back with a grin. It fills a room and sends people out into the night a little lighter than when they walked in. The reveal that matters most. If you ask a builder what their favorite reveal is, you will hear two kinds of answers. Some will name a celebrity, a big moment, a big check. Others will tell you about a quiet handoff in a parking lot. A son taking the keys to a car that used to belong to his father. Or a daughter who never thought she would hear a certain motor again. Those are the reveals that stick. Somewhere in all those handoffs, Danny has been the person on the other side of the keys, remembering his own father and understanding without words what the moment means. That is where the sadness and the joy meet. That is where the story makes sense. Closing thoughts. The title of this video talks about tragedy, and that word fits, but not in the way people expect. There was no spectacular fall. There was a loss that did not go away. There was betrayal that cost real money and sleep. There were lies that moved faster than truth and had to be chased down over and over. Through it all, the answer stayed the same. Keep building. Keep playing. Keep showing up. The Count is a character. Danny is a man. The character brings people in. The man gives them a reason to stay. If this story connected with you, tell me what part hit home. Was it the build that reminded you of someone you loved? Was it the grind behind the scenes that you know from your own work? Was it the way a sound can hold a memory? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share the moment you realize this kind of craft matters to you. And if you want more deep dives into the real people behind the shows we love, like the video and subscribe.